We have on the show today Tanvi Bhatt, who is the founder of Tanvi Bhatt International, which is India's premier personal branding company. She empowers leaders to become thought leaders and thought leaders to evolve as icons. Known as the personal branding pioneer in India, Tanvi is the go-to person on personal branding, thought leadership development, and public speaking. She is a coach, keynote speaker, and author. She has graced the TEDx platform multiple times. She has been honored with a slew of national and international awards. Let's know more about her and her philosophy from the woman herself. Welcome to the show, Tanvi.
Thank you so much, Premraj, for that warm introduction. It's such an honor and a privilege to be amidst the presence of dignitaries like you all, accomplished leaders, thought leaders, disrupting your own ecosystems with humble legacies. Thank you so much, Pal, for bringing together this platform of Bloom to help more and more people to discover what is it that they can contribute as their legacy to the collective consciousness of humanity and transcend the entire world together. It's great to be here. So, what would you all like to know? I'm happy to share a little bit about myself to begin with to set some context because a lot of people don't really know how I got into this. So, if that's something that would interest the team over
Yeah,
here, I would like to
what I would
begin.
suggest is tell us a bit more about yourself
Yes.
and how would you describe your own personal brand?
Okay, great question.
Thank you.
The tables have turned. I asked that question to everyone else. So I got into this journey of entrepreneurship straight out of my B school without any plan to do so. Honestly speaking, I have studied to become a scientist.
और
Okay,
एक बुक लाना
I am
और
technically
एक
a
बुक लाना
scientist by education. Realize I don't want to invest the next 2 years and 5 years in masters and PhD and then end up having a decent career, to fall back on. So naturally, as Indians have it, post graduation happened, MBA happened, fell in love with branding, discovered that I have this innate creative streak, which I chose to channel in the world of branding. And during my MBA, my dream back then was to start my own boutique brand consulting organization, which happened eventually, but it happened in just a different way, right? So when I stepped out of my MBA, I was just looking at establishing myself as a coach because I was extremely passionate about public speaking. I've been a student of public speaking for the last 15 plus years now. And a lot of people would ask me for informal help, coaching, guidance, because let's face it, in B school, everyone is petrified of public speaking. So I realized, hey, I'm good at this. I love doing this. I would love to do this in a more formal way, over and above what I end up doing. So I was looking at somebody to actually help me put together a plan of action because, well, even if you've done MBA, you don't really know how to launch a business from day one. And I don't hail from a business family. So being into the coaching industry was very new to me. And the first 6 months naturally were a total disaster, barely a few clients to speak of. And that's when I realized that I cannot be in the industry where I have to constantly push myself or sell myself. So what do you do? So I started looking around, understanding how the thought leaders and experts that I was looking up to across the world, what were they doing? And I realized that they all had brilliant brands that they had built around themselves. So I started looking out somebody who could help me build my own brand as the go-to expert for public speaking, for example, which was on my mind at that point of time. And I realized there was nobody in India doing this formally. And I'm not talking about 1980s, I'm talking about 2011, 12, when I had stepped out and I was seeking a formal intervention. And obviously, to my shock and awe, I'm like, now what to do? Now who will help me? So I started looking for mentors globally. And I came across this organization called Reach, created by William Maruda, who's known as the father of personal branding industry across the world. And I realized that, okay, this is exactly what I need because they have created this beautiful curriculum which helps coaches or aspiring coaches like me to learn that methodology, do it themselves naturally, and then bring it to their clients as well. And I'm like, okay, this is amazing. This is exactly what I need. I'm going to first learn how to do it and then hopefully, bring the industry to India as well. Because if I need it today, like a 24-year-old kid out of B school, imagine there's so many people out there who would benefit immensely from philosophy and methodology of personal branding, which is proven to work. Those were the humble beginnings of getting into this industry, and then one after the other I was able to fortunately have a lot of firsts to my credits just because there was nobody else doing anything in this space. Having said that, it really presented a lot many more challenges than one can perceive, because I got into an industry which did not exist. Nobody knew what personal branding is. Nobody wanted personal branding. Everyone wanted leadership development. So the first few years were quite challenging, honestly, for me, right? To create an awareness and a case and a need for clients to actually pay me to teach them or coach them. And I'm talking at corporate level, right? Individuals, of course, the business would come in. A lot of CXOs would want to work with me because, that's the first time they had heard of an Indian coach doing this for them. But corporates were still not spending, right? They were not investing money in doing corporate level programs. The first few years were quite challenging, but then I think slow and steady when I started to really build deeper roots in the industry, become more visible, play my own game, and build my brand in the right way. Things slowly started evolving, and it's been a good 9+ years now, having been at it religiously day after day, trying to do some exemplary work, and more importantly, naturally, build my own brand identity and legacy as the go-to authority. And that has been the dream from day zero. And few steps closer to that, hopefully, but long way to go. So if I had to sum up my own brand in, I'll try and do it in a statement. It would be a rebel who loves to disrupt the status quo and usher in a brand new way of thinking, doing, and being, which has never been done before.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. It's been quite a journey. You filled a vacuum that was existent, and from being a rebel, you have become an icon. Thanks for sharing that. It is said leaders are storytellers, while thought leaders are story shapers. How does one evolve into becoming a thought leader?
Great. Okay. So, we always hear people talking about the importance of storytelling, which is great, right? All leaders or influencers, people who want to influence others, add value to others, are expected to be storytellers to move the needle, right? But when I look at it from the lens of a thought leadership, it's great to be a storyteller. I think it's a leadership trait, right? To move the needle, influence people to think, to feel, act differently. But this is what thought leaders do differently. They may or may not be great storytellers, but they're fantastic story shapers, like Premlad said, because they're not focused on what has happened. They're focused on what they are building today, what they are creating, what they are ushering, what they are disrupting, what they are changing, what they are building. And they do that one day at a time in front of the entire world watching. Right. And that is why I strongly believe that thought leaders are always story shapers. So the journey of evolving from being just a leader to a thought leader begins with a very simple change, the change of your mindset. Unfortunately, in our Indian ecosystem, and I'm saying Indian specifically for a very deliberate reason, in our Indian ecosystem, we are not taught to think or to challenge or to disrupt. We've had the sheep model of education: do whatever everyone else is doing, do the tried and trusted and proven things, and you will survive or you will become successful if you do it well, right? We've never been taught to think differently, to behave differently, to challenge or to ruffle feathers. And that is what thought leaders do differently. And if you see, honestly, this is the reason why we have so many more global thought leaders emerging out of West and not so many from India. They've been taught to think differently right from the education level. And that is what is missing in Indian context. That is why we have some amazing geniuses in India, but we are not able to convert that genius, that talent, that potential into pure thought leadership material and take it to the world in the way the West has done it eloquently time and again. So the first thing people have to do is start thinking like a thought leader, and that's a journey in itself thereupon.
Thank you for calling out the sheep model education in India and the need to change. Any tips on how to develop thought leadership strategy?
Okay, absolutely. So, I've created this entire model that I call it the I call it the Tanvikshiki model of thought leadership manifestation. And the reason being, it's inspired from Chanakya's Anvikshiki model of strategic thinking. So, in my opinion, your thought leadership is a beautiful confluence of three things. Okay. It's your spiritual thought leadership, it's your strategic thought leadership, and it's your social thought leadership. And the Tanvikshiki model, it's so funny when I have to say it out loud. It's okay when people say it out loud, is a beautiful combination of each of these three things. A person has to be deeply aware of his spiritual compass, what he wants to do, be, build, and leave behind in his one lifetime. That is the genesis of your spiritual thought leadership, that deep awareness about your reason they three. Once you're aware of that, you then move on to how you're going to do that. That's where the strategic model comes in, where you have a roadmap on how you grow across these seven stages, which I'll share with you right now, to think like a thought leader, behave like a thought leader, and build a brand and a legacy like a thought leader. So there are seven stages. First, you have to start thinking like a thought leader. You have to evolve from just the leadership mindset to a more creator or a disruptive mindset. That what is it that I want to do today that nobody else is doing in my industry? How will I build something that is better than what exists today? And how will I do something that is a newer way of doing something old? This is how thought leaders think. And that is the essence of thought leadership of your personal brand as well. What you do better, what you do different, and what you do newer than everyone else. So this is a step one of thinking like a thought leader. Once you've done that, ideally, you have your own philosophy, which will be a beautiful mosaic of your diverse schools of thoughts, areas of passion, expertise, experiences, or experiments that you've done in your own life, your own career, that will help you come up with your own philosophy. So, if I have to give you an analogy, it's very akin to how I was able to create my own philosophy, which I just shared with you all, the Tanvikshiki model of thought leadership creation. All right. So, you have to create your own philosophy, something that is, your big idea, how you want to do things differently in your industry. That is step two, create your own philosophy. Step three is, if you've created your own philosophy, it's essentially created, all right, because it challenges something which is an obsolete way of doing things or doesn't work anymore, or something that never existed before, and you've created a new way of doing things. So, step three is you have to become a challenger of the old and a harbinger of the new. Step four is, once you've challenged the status quo, you have to show the world that how your creation is actually going to fill in the lacunae or going to change the game. So, step four for a thought leader is to grow as a creator and create tangible values. Because the philosophies are great, right? You can be a philosopher, but there's a journey that you map from being just a philosopher, having a philosophy or a big idea, to creating products, services, value system around how you will make that transition happen from your philosophy to impact. So, step four is create products, services, companies, whatever it is in your case, right? To ensure that a philosophy is able to be manifested as impact or value in someone else's life. Now, once you've done that, step five is have a strategy in place to not only test drive your creation, but ensure that you're able to take it to the world. How are you going to create a brand around it? How are you going to create an ecosystem of people who are interested in investing in your philosophy, in your creation, because they believe in your idea? They're excited about your idea. So, step five is create a strategy to launch your big idea, your cool thought leadership to the world. Step six is, there's always a learning curve, right? There'll be early adopters who'll be very excited because this is your inner circle who really believe in you, who've seen you grow. But there's this outer circle which you will have to Be a teacher too, simply put. You'll have to actually influence that outer circle to think differently, to experience your idea in 100 different formats, 100 different flavors that is palatable to some of them in certain ways, because we all learn things differently. So what you have to do is you have to start teaching people on how to do things differently, or how to think differently, or why is this big idea the next best thing they could ever hope for in their own life of aspiring to do ABC, whatever you're promising them, right? As a direct value proposition of your idea. So start teaching, writing books, speaking, creating courses, programs, value proposition is a great way to start transferring your thought leadership as a teacher, as a coach, as a value creator to them. And finally, the seventh and the most important element of thought leadership is something that is the nirvana land, right? It's the how do you call it? It's the end game that you want to aspire for as a thought leader, is you become an advisor, right, to the who's who in the world, because you've done all these things, you've given it 2 to 3 years, and you've evolved as the go-to thought leader, expert, authority, category creator of your industry. Because let's face it, as an advisor, I look at it from Chanakya's philosophy itself. You are a king maker, okay? And king makers matter more than kings. Think about it for a minute. King makers matter more than kings. And it's true in even today's digital, virtual 21st century ecosystems that we are in today. So, your ultimate end game as thought leader is you evolving as a kingmaker or an advisor to the who's who of the world, who are looking at you as a trusted source of knowledge, wisdom, expertise, value creation to help them scale their next milestones, whatever it is for them. So this is, and I'll be a little long, but my response to Prem Raj, your question of how do you create thought leadership roadmaps?
Wow, seven-step process to create a thought leadership strategy.
Yes.
Have your one disruptive idea, take it to the world, and attain nirvana. So, how is it that one establish a thought leadership and build a brand around it?
So, as all journeys begin, the journey of thought leadership and personal branding also begins with deep level of soul searching and introspection. It's extremely important for an individual to have absolute clarity about who you are as is today. Because the thought leadership, brand building, legacy designing is all very disruptive, it's all very future focused. But unless you know who you are today, what drives you, what you love to do, what are your deep passions, what kind of challenges excite you, what are your talents and superpowers that you want to channelize to accomplish those challenges, or make those opportunities that you are envisioning unlike anyone else. So the step one is introspection, understanding yourself from the lens of, am I even thought leadership ready right now? I'm not saying am I thought leadership material. Be very, very careful of the words that I'm choosing. I strongly believe that all of us are thought leadership material or thought leaders in the making, because I look at it from a very humble lens. If I could do something just because I was driven by passion, I sensed an opportunity and gave it my all at the age of 24 with a blank canvas, nothing to fall back on, zero credibility, zero connections. You guys are legends already, right? You guys have so much experience to bank upon. So that's what I'm saying. All of us are just thought leaders in the making. We just need to channel it in the right direction, work with the right mentors, partners to help us actually extract what is it that makes us a thought leader in our own universe, and then present it to the world. So the first step is introspection. Second step is extrospection. Understand yourself, your brand, your work vis-a-vis your ecosystem. Let's face it, we cannot exist in silo from a competitive landscape. While I like to look at it that thought leaders make competition irrelevant because they become category creators. Okay. But still, we have to be relevant in the industry. So understand who's doing what in your ecosystem and extract a few things that make you unique, make you inimitable, and make you absolutely unforgettable as a person, as a professional, and as an aspiring thought leader that you want to be. And step three is bring together these two. insight pools that you have mined about your introspection and extrospection from an outside-in perspective by doing your competition audit and scan to arrive at a go-to positioning for yourself. Of course, it's a more longer process, but this is a very high level view for people to start thinking and doing these things on their own. Do that introspection, get clarity about yourself and your brand, with the extrospection, get clarity about how you are standing out from everyone else, what makes you stand out, what makes you absolutely inimitable, irreplaceable, and unforgettable as a professional and as a potential thought leader, and bring in those insights to carve your thought leadership or personal brand positioning statement, if you may.
Three more tips to follow, a lot to ponder for us. Please talk about the importance of brand management and how does it matter?
Okay. So it's a very generic question, but I'll try and approach it from the target audience group. I'm assuming most of us here are either trainers, coaches, authors, speakers, right? That's the ecosystem over here. And, we've chosen these industries because we have something unique to share with the world, right? We have our own unique perspective, our own life lessons, our own ideas that have emerged as a beautiful mosaic of the life and the careers that we've lived. So, we already have the ingredients, right? If you have to take the cooking analogy, you have the ingredients. You just need the right recipe to bring it all together and create a value proposition unlike anyone else. And that is where the power of thought leadership branding or thought leadership creation is instrumental. You can do the same thing everyone else is doing. Most of the trainers have this thing that I need to be certified in something to start my journey because I don't know what am I going to teach. I don't have the credibility. I get it, it's very valid from a certain point of view. I did the same thing 9 years ago, right? But let me also tell you what I did differently. I learned the entire process, methodology. I used it. I tested it out from an Indian context. I saw what works. I saw what doesn't work. And over a period of time, I added my own dimension and perspective to it based on how I think about the subject of personal branding. I created my own philosophy of thought leadership around it to create a distinction in what I do, unlike anyone else. And that is what everyone needs to focus on. What dimension of expertise are you adding to the mix, to your slew of certifications, content that already is being delivered by hundreds of others in the industry? Why will somebody hire you if you are not bringing in a unique perspective to the methodology that everyone else has access to? Or you are giving away the same information that is freely available today online. And that is why it's extremely important, especially for this demographic, to have the clarity of their thought leadership, intellectual property. And let me tell you, it does not emerge overnight, right? You will have to invest that kind of time, the dedication, the thinking, ritual around crafting or creating your thought leadership over a period of time, because this, unfortunately, going back to that, has not been taught to us to do it in a very structured and a formal way. So it's going to be probably a very first time for a lot of us to think like this.
Yeah, it will take some time for a trainer to a thought leader
Yes.
capable of straddling the global stage.
Absolutely.
How and when do you decide when to stop investing in a brand strategy and move to another idea?
No, very interesting question. Okay.
Thanks.
I would say give yourself at least 3 years, okay, to build your brand, your idea. Give it all that you've got, okay, and take it to the next level. Now, there are different ways of doing this as well. Uh, and just, realized this yesterday that not all ideas will be future building, will be life changing, will be relevant as well. Just because it's our idea, we are passionate about it, we are biased towards it. So it's extremely important before you actually launch your idea. Like I said, you need to, the whole 7 step process, there's a way of creating value proposition around your idea. That step, you need to create a pilot or basic function model, test it out with few people who would ideally be a target audience in the future to validate whether it's actually relevant to them or not, whether it's actually adding value to them or not. And at the same time, there's a different level of validation also that I would strongly recommend for people to do is validated from mentors, from people that you look up to, probably from people who are doing things that you want to do in the future, to understand if there is merit and there is excitement or a unique lens of looking at what you are doing. Okay, because these guys have walked the talk, they're seniors to you, so to speak, right? And they will have a better perspective around whether this is really your the potential candidate for a next big idea, like a game changing idea or not. So do these two things to understand at the very onset before you even invest those 3 years in building your brand around your big thought leadership ecosystem.
Every brand competes on the battlefield of ideas.
Yes.
My last question to you before I hand over to Deepak to take it forward. Please share some of your successes that you have helped in brand building, which gave you the greatest joy. Eric mentioned about some of those trophies. You can talk about those too.
I seldom choose not to. Hence, I let the trophy do the speaking itself. But I would like to speak about some anonymous, client experiences and case studies, perhaps, if I could. Um, Once, it was very early on in my career, actually. I think it was 2013. Yes. Um, I had reached out to one of the CEOs of Big Four and connected with him on Twitter, saying, I would love to catch up with you and discuss how I could do some work for your organization. And he was more than welcome, like unimaginable. I was shocked when I got a response as well. Forget, getting a date to meet him and stuff like that. We met, we had a very, very interesting conversation. He told me, yes, this is exactly what we need to do for our partners, because it's a big four, right? So why don't you meet some of our partners and understand, who they are, what they're doing, and how we can possibly help them. So that, launched a series of meetings with all partners whom they had identified for an intervention like this. And I was sitting with one of the partners. He was heading one of the verticals with them at that point of time. And we're having a very interesting conversation, a very civil conversation over lunch, where he asked me a very unnerving question to begin with. He's like, Tanvi, why are you here? And I'm like, you know, since Mr. X asked us to catch up and get to know each other and see if this makes sense. That's why I'm really interested to know what you think about an intervention like this. So he's like, no, 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 I know that, obviously. Why are you here? I am here because of, the brand XYZ that I hail from. Why are you here? I'm like, oh, that kind of question. And then I'm like, well, how do I say it in the most humble way? I'm here because of my brand. And I tried to say it with a straight face, and I think I did succeed because I was really taken aback. I didn't really know what to answer to a question like that. It was the very first time somebody had asked me on my face. But I think he took that well. We definitely ended up working together. And out of all the partners that I work with in that organization, that gentleman was the one who took everything I had to offer and take himself, his brand, his career to a different level altogether. So, the most non believers end up being the best devotees, as they say it, right? So this is something that I keep going back to every time somebody asks me to share a moment or a success story, perhaps, that is close to my heart.
Not the way you put it, fighting fire with fire.
Thank you so much, Prem.
Thanks for your time. Now I'll request Deepak to take over. Deepak, all
Thank
yours.
you, Prem. Yeah, thank you, Prema. This last 32 minutes has been a masterclass in building your brand. Establishing your thought leadership, what to do, what not to do. But I would like to continue where you left off. Tanvi, you answered one of your things which worked for you, that association, your brand pitching. Tell us something which you were really, really passionate about, but it didn't work out.
Okay. See, I think one of the biggest regrets I do have is that I got into this industry because I really wanted to do more coaching around public speaking, right? And because personal branding took over, of course, I still do public speaking as a coach, but I really wanted that to be my core. And personal branding took over. So I think that's the only regret now. I probably am going to start focusing on that as well. But it's just that so much work is happening around personal branding today. So that kind of has taken a back seat. And I would love to do
Yeah.
more work on that.
Okay, well said. So, I mean, that dream, that fire is still there inside that I would still like to work more on that first passion of yours.
Absolutely. I still do coaching time and again, but anytime somebody comes to me, like 9 out of 10 times they want to do personal branding, not public speaking.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I want to ask you this question. You said, king makers are bigger than king. Try to become a king maker if you want to establish yourself as a thought leader.
Yes.
And I was just taking off from what happened to me today morning. When you are scrolling through Facebook today morning, out of 10 posts, there were 4 posts which were sponsored. Everybody is trying to sell me a course, a program on how to increase your sales, on business mastery, on how to become a better XYZ. Everybody is positioning himself or herself as a Tony Robbins. Nobody wants to take the spot of Jim Rohn. Jim Rohn is the guy who created Tony Robbins and many of those other guys. Nobody is actually looking forward to become Jim Rohn. Everybody is looking forward to establish themselves as Tony Robbins. That space is vacant. If guys you are listening to this, go and occupy that space of Jim Rohn and not probably of Tony
Absolutely. And
Robbins.
I
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah,
agree more with you. And that is why, I'm so passionate about the concept of thought leadership because it's not a tactical small win game, right? You have to be in it like 1000%. You may not see wins overnight, right? And after 10 years, if you ask me, have I even begun my journey? No. I'm still working on my own craft of thought leadership and creating something that has never been created before. And then when I'm ready, I present it to the world, right? After being in the industry for 10 years. And that is the beauty of thought leaders. They're always looking at
yeah.
how do I create value to change the game completely.
And this is something which actually I wanted to ask you as the next question, but you touched upon that. This concept of 10,000 hours.
Yes.
Unless you haven't given that 10,000 hours to your art, your craft, your profession, to whatever you want to do for yourself and position yourself, you will not reach that space. You said, try 3 years, give that thing an option, try out if it works, otherwise do something else. You are saying I started in 2013 and you are still work in progress, despite being established at where you are. So it's very, very important for all of us who are listening to whatever you are doing, give it time. You will not become a successful whatever you want to become just by running few Facebook ads or positioning yourself as a trainer who can, turn around people's lives by paying 499 doing a course. It's not going to happen like that.
So
I want to take you over to a little something in our school, which you said the sheep model. And you touched upon spirituality, which you combined into your program to give this wholesome thought leadership thing. Somehow the spirituality space has got lost over the last 1 or 2 generations. We have these millennials, now we have these Gen Zs. Previously, we used to be part of a joint family where, the grandfathers, the grandmothers used to tell us spiritual stories. Now we are nuclear families. There is nobody to tell us stories. Nobody's teaching us spirituality in school. Nobody's talking about spirituality in college. How does one bring around this spirituality aspect as you try to do? You said, I try to package it. How do we do it for this next incoming generation? What needs to change in our schooling concept? Do we need to go back to Gurukul, or do we need to combine the best of both worlds? A little bit of Gurukul, a little bit of this, and then package it for our students.
uh, I'm so happy you asked this here because one of my dreams today is to actually create a Gurukul in the future because I'm so disturbed with the quality of education that we've gone through. And especially because I've gone through that, I saw no value in it. And I realize it today, right? Whatever I am today is because what I made myself in the last 9 years. Education played no role in that. maybe a few faculties development here and there. But everything that I know, everything that I'm doing today is self-education. I think today there's a beautiful concept of homeschooling which has emerged in India, and that is really, I think, the beginnings or the inception of the Gurukul system of our future. And life always takes you back full circle. I mean, we've seen the ancient way of our education has been the Gurukul system, which worked beautifully. But today is going to be just a lot more challenging considering the kind of ecosystems, worlds, and of course the era we live in today. And probably the Gurukuls will have to go digital more than anything else. And I think if somebody can crack that, a lot of people are already doing work around eclectic education, and I have the highest respect for Mind Valley as well to do that, to try and be one of the great examples to bring in eclectic education, which makes traditional education completely obsolete and redundant. So,
Yeah.
to answer your question, yes, Gurukuls will come back, and how. And I would love to see, or I would love to even make one coming out of India to begin with, where I
Yeah.
can really contribute to shaping the future generation, not only from education space, but I think this concept of Gurukul is bathed in spiritual
Yes.
education, right?
Yes.
And that will make it a lot more acceptable to parents. Because today, when you look at schooling, they would never even imagine to have any elements of spirituality or to help our students understand who we are, our true nature, our origin, our
Yeah.
metaphysicalness. You can call it that
Yeah.
way, right? How many schools teach meditation today? Maybe yoga in a
None.
certain way, just from a
Maybe.
physical,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
from a
Yeah.
physical activity perspective. But do kids today, do teenagers today, do millennials today even understand the essence of yoga? They just think it's going out and doing 25 different asanas. He's taught those things, and that is something that I would love to contribute to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. So this is something which, I mean, some at some point, this new education policy which has come out is trying to change a few things, but you can do only that much. You can't turn it around 180 degrees and twist it over and say from tomorrow it's going to be this. It's going to be a gradual process. So slowly, slowly it will happen.
And
You
honestly,
talk,
just because
yeah,
you said that, Deepak, to add to that, I really think the government is never going to be able to accomplish that. It's going to be people like you and I who are passionate about it will end up doing
yeah,
some work to influence that.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, this is a good closed room for people to, see to it that we all collaborate together and bring about this change, bring about this disruption. It's time we rebelled against the system. You said you want to, if you want to create disruption, you have to be a rebel.
Yes.
Now, a lot of youngsters now, are talking about the word disruption. Everybody wants to disrupt one particular part of the industry or part of the business or part of the profession which they are. The startup culture is there. We know people who are making millions and maybe even billions of dollars. Youngsters are becoming millionaires and billionaires overnight. We, however, also need to note that for every successful startup which made it, there were probably a few thousands which didn't even get off, which tried with wanted but were never able to do it. How does somebody who is starting out, who's thinking about disruption, who's thinking about wanting to change something, where does he or she start? Is it just two or three youngsters getting together, sitting inside a room and saying, let's design something? Or do these people need guided programs, mentoring, slash leadership from thought leaders to accomplish this from happening, to see to it that this thing happens?
Absolutely. I don't think any one of us, regardless of whether we are youngsters starting out or extremely experienced professionals and leaders in our own ecosystem from corporates, perhaps, who want to do something on their own, can do it on our own. We always need mentors of people, mentorship from people actually being there, done that. It'll just make the whole journey a lot shorter for us, right? And I've learned it the hard way. I did a lot of things on my own. I still try to do a lot of things on my own. Then I kind of have to, have a reality check and tell Tanvi, stop, just find the right mentor. And I again go back and find the right mentors. For
Yeah,
example, I mean, over and above what I do, I have two other startups that I run. So one is a startup I run with my husband, which is into dairy tech industry, something completely offbeat than what you're doing, right? And this part of profession. And we actually launched a brand 2 years ago, which disrupted the entire dairy industry by launching a certified A2 milk brand for the very first time in the country. And we actually reached out to mentors across, all the dairy brands in the industry to learn how the industry works. We didn't just enter the industry with a blank canvas like what I had done 9 years ago. I learned from my mistakes. This time when I launched this brand, because it was a product brand, I realized that even if it's a disruptive idea thought, it's not going to be easy just because I know how to build brands. It really was a very difficult industry to be active in because we were a farm to family brand. And to understand the operational logistics, all those things was very challenging for us. That was 2 years ago. Just last year, I was working on my second startup, which is a wellness venture. And just in February, I launched another industry altogether in India, right, which is all about high vibration hydration. And coming from the industry of branding, thought leadership, and all those, different credentials to do something like this was like really recreating myself altogether. So the last 4 years have really gone for me as an individual to be aware of this new industry that I want to be in, to understand the concepts, philosophies, and the core subject matter expertise of hydration, because this is a completely new product we launched in India for the very first time. So it really took 4 years of learning, of acquainting myself with this industry to be able to even speak about it at any forum today. So brands and products and services and industries cannot be launched overnight, especially if you're looking at thought leadership and disruption. You have to invest that level of personal education, of knowledge accumulation to be able to speak about it in a forum and to really create impact, because you don't want to be just a copy paste speaker, so to speak, right? And I really hate
Yeah.
copy paste speakership, right? You have to have an idea which has not been presented in the way you aspire to present it in.
Yeah, copy paste leadership. Yeah, that's a good one.
Thank you.
Taking off from there, you mentioned, when you were looking for mentorship right in the very beginning, what you wanted to do, and somehow you couldn't find it in India and you needed to go abroad. You also said that somehow, for whatever reason, the Western part of this world produces more of these thought leaders. Where did we lose this? The land of Ram, the land of Krishna, the land of Chanakya, the Sone ki Chidiya. What happened to us? Where did we lose this? Why did a 5,000-year-old civilization with expertise of our sages suddenly lose everything that we needed to go back to a 300 or a 500-year-old civilization, learn all that thing and get it back to us? How did this happen?
A couple of things. We were robbed of our education, our culture, our education system. When I say not just education in terms of the content, we were just robbed of the opportunity to experience that. We were imposed over the colonial rule with the British model of education, which probably I have not studied in UK, but I'm sure it's way different than what has been imposed upon us in India, right? And I think those are two major factors that, in spite of hailing from the land of Chanukyas and extraordinary thinkers and Aryabhatas, because we've given world the gift of knowledge and wisdom, and
Yeah,
of course,
yeah,
the Saptarishis and Vedas and everything we speak about, we have been the knowledge bearers of our civilization.
yeah,
And that was robbed from us. The opportunity to tap into that wealth of knowledge and wisdom that exists has been robbed from us because it's not being made part of a mainstream education for whatever reasons.
yeah. We need to go back to our roots. We need to go back to our holy scriptures, our holy books, our Vedas. All that knowledge of those rishis, of Chanakya is just lying there. Somebody needs to extract it, package it, and sell it back to us.
I think Dr. Radhakrishnan Pillai is doing a brilliant
Yes,
job of bringing Chanakya, making it relevant again for a modern context.
yes, yes.
So it's already begun. It's happening in bits and parts, but again, it just needs to be a lot more global.
Yeah, and the fact that people like you are actually talking about it. Unless we don't talk about it, unless we don't make people aware that this is important, this is our legacy, this is what we were born with, this is what we were supposed to know. This is which what will take us places. Wonderful. This has been great chatting with you, and we have 32 people in the room. I'm sure there are people who would like to ask you questions. I would love to keep on asking you questions, but let's open up this forum. Krishna, you had a question, and if somebody has a question, please unmute yourself one by one. You could ask Tanvi a question, or otherwise, you could type your question in the chat. Premraj will read it out and then ask Tanvi for that.
It's so good to see so many familiar
Tanvi,
faces
the
in the room.
session was
Yes, Krishna.
continue. The session was really insightful, and I really loved your this methodology, Tanishka. So here you have told like create your own philosophy. So when you say creating your own philosophy and thinking differently, so how you will evaluate that your thought process is totally different from the whole world, what you are thinking right now, and you can go ahead and create your own philosophy, your own methodology, and work on that. So first, the evaluation of your philosophy, how we can evaluate our philosophy.
Okay, great. Krishna, thank you for asking that question. Just to set the context, the process is called Anvikshiki. So Anvikshiki is something that Chanakya has gifted the world, right? And it was just impossible for me to resist adding that tea over there and putting it, right?
Yeah.
With all humility, that is what it is. Great question, Krishna. So, like I said, you need to have a validation stage for your idea. Okay. First of all, there's a process to even create your big idea. Okay. So, you understand how to create your big idea depending on bringing together your passion, your vision, or the opportunity that you're seeing in the industry, and what impact you want to make, leveraging that opportunity. Okay. That is the genesis of your big idea. Once you've got that clarity, then you tap into your diverse schools of thoughts, areas of exposure, understanding, industries that you hail from, and bring together whatever knowledge, wisdom, insights you have personally amassed. Okay. And see how those lessons, beliefs, um, thought provoking ideas trigger you to think differently. And that is, and you know why I created this model? I did the exact same thing when I created Tanvikshiki as a philosophy. Okay, when I created this whole model of spiritual, strategic, and social thought leadership coming together. Um, Earlier, I was doing the strategic and the social thought leadership part of it, but when I became more aware, became more conscious, or became a student of spirituality, I realized the importance it has in our lives and our careers, more importantly, because if we are not navigating our lives in sync with our spiritual compass, we will not be able to do justice to our dreams, aspiration, and purpose of being here in this incarnation, so to speak. Okay. So, do that, bring in that confluence of thoughts, ideas, perspectives, insights, lessons, wisdom that life has taught you uniquely compared to anyone else, because that is what is going to help you create your own philosophy. Okay. And then once you've done that, speak to a few people, soundboard it with people who you look up to. But I'll also have a word of caution over here that remember, this is your philosophy. You've come up with it because you resonate with it at some level. Others may or may not resonate with it at that level, depending on what lens they're looking at it from. So if you get 3 out of 10 people saying that this is rubbish, don't get disheartened. They are just not evolved yet, is how I like to look at it. But if 9 out of 10 people tell you this is rubbish, go back to the drawing board and see where are you missing the beat.
Very, very well said. Very well said,
That
Tanvi.
was very
Brigadier Bhasin is here. Yeah, yeah.
Hi,
that
Brigadier.
was very well explained.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Can
Brigadier
I
Bhasin, sir, you wanted to say something.
Yeah, actually, I want to comment on a few things that I heard, and I think it was firstly, congratulations to you. You all are putting up a program which is so much worth in its value, and I think you're contributing in a very, very significant way. So, congratulations to all of you in the Bloom team.
Thank you, Brigadier.
I've got lots of things to say, and I know that time will not permit. So I will try and just give you the headlines, and maybe I'll put them on the LinkedIn in a little more detail. My first point is about Gurukul, which you talked about. And I was, when I came out of the army and I started my camp, I was going to run a camp exactly like the Gurukul. I didn't want any electricity there. I wanted mud houses. I wanted children to learn gardening and all. I found that people in Bombay, children had never touched soil. They didn't know what the meaning of soil. And I'm telling you, when I used to take children to a farm next door where they saw pineapples growing, and I don't know how many of you've seen pineapples grow. I've seen children saying, "Ma'am, look at this. They are like thorns." Okay, they're never seen. When I first took in 2006, I took a group of children to show them milking of a cow. And I asked, how many of you have seen a cow being milked? There was not a single child. And 4 out of the 6 teachers had never seen milking of a cow. Because if you live in Bombay, where will you see milking of a cow? Coming back to, I started with that concept, but very soon I found that either my concept or my business both can't go, because nobody was prepared to come and stay without electricity. Nobody was prepared to come and stay without air conditioning. So we created a hybrid model. And I'm telling you, the moment you go hybrid, impurity is there. Okay, point 1. Point 2, that I went to participate in the international conference of something called AEE, that is Association of Experiential Education. And this was in Las Vegas in 2010. And when it started, somebody said, let me introduce you to experiential education. The first outbound learning camp came up in UK in 1954. And then it caught up in USA in 1980s. No, I couldn't take it. So I stood up, and the format there was that you have to first say who you are, which country, and then your question. So I said, I'm Brigadier Bhasin. I am from India. And I feel that in India, we have been doing experiential learning for thousands of years. So they all looked back, because I was quite in the back, 600 people in the hall. They're all looking back. What is he saying? So then somebody from the audience said, Gurukul. I said, yes. So that man on the stage says, no, Brigadier, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the first formal outbound learning center which was created in London. I said, I still beg to differ. Every ashram of Gurukul was a
Experiential learning.
Outbound learning camp, right? Now, the point I'm trying to make is why I did everything possible in my camp to create that atmosphere and did all that I could. And I can go on to say that we used to have a 3 days totally Gurukul experience, other than the fact that people are staying in dormitories with fans. I insisted on no air conditioners. My partners wanted, but we only had 6 cottages only for senior people, and rest was all fans. Why it didn't work? That is my question. Why Radhakrishnan Pillai, I've had a long chat with him, why his Chanakya is not working? Why Gurukul system is not working for people like me who tried it? Why NEP? Somebody's talked. I've got lots of things to talk about NEP, but I'm very hopeful. NEP 2020 by 2030 is going to bring a radical change. I'm very sure, because I have had some personal experience. I did a senior principal school leadership training on the 12th of February offline in Karjat, and I got a feeling from 20 principals the way they have open mind, they've open-heartedly accepted this. And one principal said that I thought we were in a jail for all these years. NEP has liberated us. So Tanvi, I like to tell you that I think NEP 2020 has got very good chances of success. Coming back to NEP 2020, Gurukul, everything, we have not been able to find the right type of way of convincing the audience, which is your millennials. Nothing is going in their mind. 2 reasons. Before the reasons, we have even tried movies. You've had serials, you have had movies on Ramayana, on Mahabharata, and I thought that's going to bring a radical change because people listen to Bollywood and listen to TV. Even that didn't have an impact. I strongly believe that there is one missing link, and that missing link is parents. The NEP 2020 covers everything, but there's no mention of education of parents, and this country needs parents to be educated more than the children. That is where the missing link is, because none of your systems, what I did in my camp, what Chanakya is doing, what Tanvi is doing, if the parents are not going to support and the parents do themselves not resonate with spirituality and Gurukul, आगे क्या होगा? Because foundation तो घर में बन रही है. It is the child who starts learning from his parents before he goes to school. And that is where the missing link is. Thank you.
Thank you so
So I
much.
think as long as we have Brigadier Bhasin and we have Tanvi Bhatt, this thing will definitely is going to become a success.
Yes.
There are people who are passionate. There are people who are thought leaders. There are people who have followers. I am sure this is going to work and it is going to work well. Tanvi, you wanted to say something.
I just want to say thank you so much, Brigadier, for that perspective. Yes, a lot of us are not even aware of our own rich history and culture that we have to contribute. We've just been so blindsided with living day to day, right? And that is what I think Saudis do differently. They don't live in the today, they don't even live in the tomorrow. They live in the day after tomorrow. And that is what most of us need to do. And that is where also, again, the millennials are missing the beat, right? They're looking at a very tactical way of getting things done, small wins. They're looking at hacks, as they call it today.
They're looking after 2 minutes Maggie noodles.
Yeah, they're not looking at mastery, they're not looking at life, they're not looking at seasoning themselves and growing and imbibing the best of their world. They're looking at, I just like to call it hacks, because that is the buzzword for the millennials today.
Any more questions?
Yeah, if I may, please. Okay, so I'm coming back to the thing of branding, which, as Tanvi said, is a fairly new concept with people in India. And having been a consultant with large companies and, executives and things, in other aspects besides branding, I find that people who take on your services, like they would with you, Tanvi, on this matter of branding, they usually want to judge their progress by certain metrics. In other words, if you're trying to teach me how to be a better sales manager, then it must reflect within 1 year, 6 months in my, the number of new products I've introduced, the higher level of, distributorships I've got, or the increase, the top, what do you call it, the revenues of the company or my division. So do you find this interesting question, as we all would be facing as coaches and trainers, do you find people really focusing and trying to get to know what are the metrics that would determine that there has been an improvement in my branding? Like I know my friend Abhijit, one of his favorite things is to say how many followers he's got on LinkedIn, or how many subscribers somebody may have on a YouTube channel. Is that the metric that one does? What other kind of how does one check on the influence? Because that ultimately is what the branding thing is about, what your legacy is going to end up in once the exercise is over. Do you have such questions coming at you, or are people still so nebulous about it that they will go with whatever you say and say, okay, I was with Tanvi and my branding has improved? How much, in what way, which area, left open? So do you have any thoughts on that, Tanvi?
Absolutely, that's a very great question. And I do get occasional clients who want to know the KPIs, right? How do I measure the transformation or brand equity over a period of time? So there are multiple ways we can do it, but what I strongly recommend to my clients is, let's co-create goals that will help you measure your brand growth from where you are today. So we set up elaborate milestone maps for our clients. These could be goals around diverse areas of your life. One could be visibility related, where you are today and what kind of visibility you wish to have, and if you're able to achieve that or not in the next 6 months, whatever time frame we mutually decide upon based on the initiatives, efforts, and actual, aggressive ambition he or she has to make that happen in that stipulated time. Then there are revenue goals, based on what you are making today and how much you're making over the next 6 months, that will determine how aggressively you've been positioning your products and services out there and inviting people to test it out and work with you as a coach or expert, whatever it is, depending on what you do. Third is naturally, credibility. How many more people have been championing you, supporting you, endorsing you, your products and services? These are just 3 of the goals that we usually out of many more based on who the individual is, where they are positioning their brand from, I want to accomplish XYZ things over the next 3 to 5 years, and we take baby steps to make that happen. So when I work with them, it's ideally a 6 months long project, but we set up milestones for the next 1 year to help him or her track the growth and transcendence of their brand in terms of visibility, revenue, credibility, thought leadership, ecosystem that they're building, tribe that they're building, and social media followers is one element of it. I'll tell you why. I have known speakers, thought leaders who are Hall of Fame speakers, which is the highest accolade you can get in the world to be a speaker. They must be charging upwards of 45,000 US dollars for an hour of their keynote time that they do. And these people, when I think until pandemic happened, right? These thought leaders had less than 5,000 followers on Instagram. Does that mean they don't have a brand? I think they have a brand stronger than people who have 100,000 followers on Instagram. I mean, you have to understand what are your brand goals, what are your revenue goals, and more importantly, what is your target audience? Whom are you serving, right? For example, in my case also, I'm not very active on Instagram. I'm there, just for a personal joy and passion, because my target audience are CXOs, entrepreneurs, thought leaders. They are not wasting their time scrolling Instagram feeds. So understand who is your target audience, where is your network, and add value to them over there.
Thank you, Tanvi. I think that's an excellent, way forward for a lot of people who are trainers. And to be able to do this, I don't know whether you're doing it as a matter of course, and I presume you probably do it, because that then keeps everybody on the same page, as time passes. Because as you said, it may go up to 3 years before your branding exercise takes fruit. I also want to commend you on, very astutely pointing out what the problem was, which Deepak said. And you said it was this the colonial way of usurping our previous education system. And that happened in India with Lord Wellesley, who very systematically destroyed the whole Gurukul and that, open, it was an open learning situation,
Right.
And changed it to this closed curriculum-driven, science, because it helped them. They needed those people who would be good engineers and stuff like that to work on the railways, etc. So it was all to their own purpose that they literally systematically destroyed this. And I think Shashi Tharoor and others have vehemently, criticized that happening. But on the other hand, I wish to point out that there are certain institutions like the Isha Foundation, which Sadhguru is doing, and it is very focused on this experiential thing that Brigadier Bhasin was trying to do and talking about, and also the fact that they are taking these kids at an early age, and inculcating the Vedas, yoga, all the meditation, all of that, in addition to actually going out, planting trees. They've had a fantastic tree planting thing, which is, mind-blowing in what it has accomplished. I happen to know and I've met Sadhguru and associated with the group, but rather my wife is, but more than that, there is the way forward. People are showing that, you can have hits and misses. And unfortunately, Brigadier Bhasin had some of the misses, but there are also people who are scoring and, they are showing the way forward. And the Jesuits, I happen to be a student on St. Xavier's and Jesuit organizations. They learned this very early on. They said, give me a kid up to the age of 7. Then you can take him back, because we will have inculcated the right moral values and things that we want to put in. So that is where, Deepak and others were talking about, and even Dr. Bhasin, Brigadier Bhasin mentioned that specifically, that you have to involve the parents at the earlier, because they are the first teachers in a child's life. I mean, that was just in passing that I wanted to make a comment on the early aspect of it. The earlier you get to the child and inculcate these values, the more it will pay off and the quicker it will pay off.
Thank you, Eric, for sharing your thoughts. Thank you. Yeah, over to you, Prem.
Yeah, there are some appreciative comments on the chat from Surbi Singh, Jagdish Shanna, Yukti Mendirata, Lata Subaraidu, Shalini Mehta, Krishna Jaju, Amit Kothari, Vishan Lakhani, Viva Gavde. Thank you very much. There was a lot of chatter on the chat about the educational policy. Thank you very much for your feelings and thoughts. Tanvi, thank you for an engrossing session.
Thank
Our
you.
knowledge and understanding of developing thought leadership and branding has increased by several notches. Thought leadership is about disseminating ideas that makes your brand unique. Thank you for gracing this platform. You have enriched it. Thank you and God bless.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Payal, Premraj, Deepak, Abhijit, of course, for inviting me to Bloom. And I think Bloom has got such amazing potential to be perhaps the next Mind Valley coming out of India. If you continue this momentum and dedication towards bringing diverse, disruptive perspectives on everyday topics related to personal growth, transformation, of course, career excellence, and the art of living a truly transcendental life. So thank you so much, Pal, for taking the lead and doing this. And thank you everyone for having me, paying attention to what I had to share. And so much love and kindness today.